What's going on, everyone? It's Adam and Craig with Grandstand Golf. This is a new preview show we're doing for the Palmetto Championship at Congaree, Craig.
Congaree?
I'll probably get it figured out by, showdown shows. But yeah, this is a new special podcast/video. It's a podcast though. It's a new format. So let us know in the YouTube comments, Apple comments. Let us know in the Apple reviews what you think of it moving forward. It's a new one. We're trying it out, trying a different thing here. Our other podcast, is more looking back with a tiny bit of preview. This one's a tiny bit looking back, but mostly a big preview for the week coming up.
Yeah, and we've heard from some people that they want to be able to listen to the DFS content, not just watch it on YouTube. So hopefully this fulfills a little bit of that need. It's going to be much more casual in terms of we'll be talking through it and not so much presenting graphics at you, but we'll still try to give you a little bit, at this point, who do we like in the different tiers and that kind of thing.
So it's going to be a Monday record, talk a little bit about the tournament, talk a little bit about the course, talk a little bit maybe, Craig, of our different DFS strategies. At least our early looks for the week. And then, dive into some DFS DraftKings pricing and guys that have caught our interest, really.
Yeah, now the problem being we're starting this in a week where we don't actually know a whole lot about the course. So I guess we'll just jump into it.
Let's jump into it. So Palmetto Championship. I'm never going to get this right this week, I don't think. It's replacing the Canadian Open. We do have our tournament preview already out on YouTube if you want to check that out. But Congaree.
Just think like kangaroo.
Congaree Golf Club. Par 71, 7,600 plus yards. Tom Fazio design. If you've heard that name, it's Shadow Creek, PGA National, Pinehurst, Firestone. He has designed all those courses. This is Monday, so this is kind of what we've heard, what we know. It's inspired by kind of the Australian Sandbelt area, Sandbelt courses. Lucas Glover, Craig, is an ambassador, a player ambassador here. Apparently they only have two members, but you also can become an ambassador as well. But he has a couple interesting quotes here I want to throw your way and kind of get your what you think of these quotes. So he says, as far as firmness of the fairway, it's very Linksy style. Like if it was firm and fast over in the UK, but around the greens, you got it like Wingfoot height bunkers and Seminole speed Bermuda fast greens that roll off everywhere.
Yeah, so we spoke about this a little bit on our preview first look show on YouTube. Check that out if you haven't already. But to me, this feels a lot like either the Concession, where the WGC was earlier this year.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Or Kiowa, where you would think it plays like where the PGA Championship was, where you would think it plays like a links course, but then actually when you get out there, the greens are elevated. It's not a roll it up to the you can over in the UK. You can play the game on the ground. It's not that kind of course. But
you're saying this one isn't that way?
It is not played on the ground up to the greens, I would say.
I'm hearing different things, and that's why it's going to be an interesting week. And that's kind of, so I got another one here from Lucas Glover. He says, there are so many ways to play this place. You could be a guy who's short and straight, chase it down the fairway and play smart golf. Then you could have a guy that hit it over a bunch of the trouble and play it that way. So he seems to think that you can play it around on the ground. There's been different things coming up.
So that's what I was just going to say. I think that it will, the way he says the fairways play firm and fast. I think that's where you will see it. It's hard to hold fairways oftentimes, but because it'll roll, essentially you're not going to be able to control the ball. Same thing with easy hit fairways when it's wet, But I think that when you get these elevated greens and they're not hard surrounds, then it becomes, you hit the surround and it's soft and it doesn't bounce out to the green, and then but you hit the green and it's firm. So it does create for a different type of golf, I would say, than typical links golf.
Of all the noise that we're hearing from the course reviews, the blogs, there's a good one from Golf Digest writer that kind of went through his experiences here. The one thing I think I'm buying, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I'm kind of buying that it's not necessarily, it's long for a par 71, 7,600 plus yards. It's very long. I'm buying that it's not going to play that long. All right, what do you kind of feel? How do you feel?
Well, so, it's tough. First off, pars are relevant, but I think I saw someone say that it's the longest par 71 on the PGA, like that has been played. Whether it's a par, whatever you want to call par, it's relevant. But that still is. It means it is long. Yeah. I might put in a few guys that I like a little bit for length that I would be on the verge of playing anyways. Like maybe if it's a tie, I might skew that way. But I'm not going to just search out the bombers and play them.
Yeah, I mean, distance is always an advantage. If you're hitting fairways and hitting greens, it's always an advantage. But yeah, not seeking guys out specifically for that. Yeah. One thing I did want to note, it's Monday. It's the golf's longest day. They call it in the USGA. It's USGA qualifier day. A bunch of guys are playing 76-hole tournaments all over the country. I think there's 7 or so qualifying sites. So a lot of changes to the field. We've already seen Danny Willett withdraw, Brandon Grace withdraw, Charlie Hoffman withdraw from this tournament. So we are recording this when they're kind of halfway through their qualifying rounds or qualifying days. So there might be more withdrawals, and I'm completely expecting that to happen. I put a couple outrights out early that there might be withdrawals and kind of catch these good numbers, but just kind of something to note.
Yep, for sure. I do, Brandon Grace is probably the one that I would have, depending on what his price came in at, but he has been playing very well, so he would have been an interesting DFS option, but that will not be the case.
That will not be the case. Okay, so when we're looking at DraftKings pricings, players, how are you taking this field, slicing it down, kind of picking some of your guys?
So before we slice it down, to me, we've got a very top heavy 5 to 10 players, and then we drop off quickly into more what we usually see as deeper in the field is the next tier. So we lose a lot of the depth of the field. We do have, I guess we can just get started on the 9K plus, but I essentially am going to be looking at stars and scrubs type of builds, because I do think there's value with these guys. The ownership's going to be high on these guys up top. But I think the difference between some of these guys you see at 8K and some of the guys you see in the 6Ks, that's not more for me to want to save the money up top.
Yeah, it's a super interesting week. It's a week where I think actually the more research you do, you can have a leg up. And this is why we kind of like those, the Puerto Rico Opens, the Corrales Punta Cana type tournaments, because it brings a different flavor. You have these European guys, Corn Ferry guys. If you do your research, you can kind of find these diamonds in the rough. But just to kind of echo your point. So first 4 guys. We have DJ, 11,400, Brooks, 11,100, Matt Fitzpatrick, 10,400, Tyrrell Hatton, 10,200. And then on the first page of the DraftKings at 8,900 is Alex Noren. Alex Noren, was he one of your sleepers last week?
He was 67, 68, somewhere around there last week.
So a guy that was 67, 68 last week in a good field, a good PGA field, is now bumped up to 8,900 this week. And that's kind of what you mean. I think the tier 2, like we have some stars for sure, but that PGA Pro kind of,
it's almost like we don't have the second or third tiers, because all those guys are off prepping for the US Open.
Yeah. That's
and then I think sometimes in these type of fields, you do get an influx of Europeans. But even that, like with the influx of Europeans in this field, a lot of the top Europeans are in the US Open, so they're prepping, they're taking this week off. You're kind of getting like, I saw Wilco Ninabar or whatever. I can't always get that name wrong. But it's sort of like a tier down even in the Euros. We do have Poulter and Higo up higher, and obviously Fleetwood. But there is, there is also lacking some of that kind of right next there. We don't have the Bobby Macks, the Anton Rosners, those types in this field.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, should we jump into some of the first guys that are piquing our interest here a little bit?
Yeah, so first off, 9K and above, and this is probably the only one we will actually kind of tell you all who is here, because it very quickly starts to delve into names that not everyone's going to know. But we got DJ Brooks, Matt Fitzpatrick, Tyrrell Hatton. Those guys are all above 10K. And then Harris English, Sung Jae, Tommy Fleetwood, Ian Poulter, Patton Kizzire is an expensive 9,100. And then Garrick Higo is 9,000. So, some names obviously we expect to see at the top, and then some names that probably are the highest we've seen them in a PGA tournament ever.
Yeah. I guess, okay, this is super early. Some of these guys I'm going to talk about, I might highlight a couple. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to make my player pool, but they're flagged right now. I kind of
Mhm.
cornered the page. They're flagged right now. But I guess my first question to you, DJ Brooks. Do you think they're both going to make your pool? First thought, gut reaction?
I think likely. I think
Yeah.
that there's just too much win equity with those two players in this field that. And I mean, it's tough because I mean, obviously both of them, this is a tune-up, but we saw, I forget what Brooks has done in tune-ups before, but we saw DJ almost win the Houston Open before the Masters last year. Obviously, he was playing much better golf at the time, but still, I mean, DJ just, the talent level is so much higher with these guys in this field that it's the type of thing they can win without their best game.
Yeah, and I like they're this is where kind of good, like they're always trying to win. I don't think they're ever shipping it in or just showing up. Yeah, their motivations might differ slightly from week to week, but I don't think they're just coming here to go through the motions. In fact, with the US Open, I think they really want to fine tune those aspects of the game, and they want to have they don't want to be out of form coming into the US Open. They want to play well here.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. They're trying to have major championship game right now. So.
And then be the favorite for Torrey Pines. Like if either of them win, they could be the favorite. It's
Yeah,
kind of
and
like
now
what we saw with
I
Rory.
think we had mentioned this. I forget what tournament it was. It was either before the U.S. Open or the Masters last year. But essentially, if DJ or Brooks, if you want to bet them for the U.S. Open, I think, and I mean even further, Matt Fitzpatrick, Trail Hatton, I think you look at those prices now because I don't see them, unless they have catastrophic weeks, I don't see the prices
Yeah.
falling a whole lot from where they are now. But if they win, those numbers are going to go up. So, it's one of those ones. I don't do the outright markets much, but that would be my plan if I did want to bet any of these guys who are playing this week.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Okay, player of interest. We're picking one each, 9K and above. Craig, who do you got?
I got Matt Fitzpatrick. He comes in 10,400. He's third most expensive in the field on DraftKings. I just think, he's coming off not necessarily the best last, few starts, but before that, he was playing really good golf. So, he has a couple of missed cuts of recent, missed cut at Memorial and the Byron Nelson, but aside from that, he was not great, but top 30 at PGA. He was a top 5 at the RBC, and then kind of a string of top 20s before that in the lead up to the Masters. So I think that he is one of the people, like, this is where I will be heavy on players up this high because I think so much of the win equity is going to fall here. And Matt Fitzpatrick, to me, there's just a little bit less question marks than maybe we see with DJ and Brooks.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It is always, I mean, I love the ball striker, so it always kind of, I have to get a little bit outside my comfort zone to be like, okay, I'm going big on Matt Fitzpatrick this week. But of interest, Data Golf just updated their kind of stroke gain table for this tournament, and over the last 6 months, Matt Fitzpatrick is first stroke gain total at plus 1.73, and there's only 4 guys that are over 1. So the second guy at 1.50 is my player of interest, Terrell Hatton. 10,200. He's just below Matt Fitzpatrick. He's my player of interest over the 9K range. He hasn't really played much. We haven't seen a lot of him. So he has T38 PGA Championship, T39 RBC Heritage, T18 Masters. That's kind of what we've seen of him. It hasn't been a lot. And results that are very kind of. But 11 straight events, this is why his strokes gain numbers are so good. 11 straight events gaining at least 0.61 strokes gain total. So he's been playing very well for a long time. And even his biggest weakness right now or over the season is his around the green game. And his strokes gain around the green has been positive in 6 of his last 8. His best tournament this whole season, going back to last year, on the PGA Tour was a T3 at Shadow Creek. Tom Fazio, I don't know if there's something there. Shadow Creek, you're shaking your head. What?
Well, no, I remember him playing there, and that was, I think it was either the first day or the second day, but he just came out and he had he had kick-in birdies on about 5 or 6 holes straight, and I was like, man, like how does this guy not win every tournament? And obviously, when you see a high level, a top 15 guy in the world, when they kind of are on a heater, you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, like this. All of them have times where they look like they should win every tournament. But I do remember that Shadow Creek one standing out for me with Hatton. You mentioning that the Data Golf updated their stuff for the Palmetto. So both Hatton and Fitzpatrick, those are the guys outside of DJ and Brooks. Those are the top 4 in pricing.
Yep.
And I think this sort of what they have as their winning percentages, probability of winning, kind of encapsulates why all 4 of these guys will be in my pool. So they have DJ at the top at 9.6%, and then they have Hatton and Fitzpatrick at 7.1 and 7 respectively, and then Brooks at 6.1%. And then after that, we fall down to Sungjae Im at 3.7. So there's those top 4 are going to carry so much of the high end equity in this pool that I think, early thought, I think all 4 are going to be heavy in my pool.
Yeah, the question I have when I build, and I just threw Fitzpatrick and Hatton into one, and you're left with 73.50 average remaining. So you could do those 2 and kind of balance low 7Ks, which is kind of an interesting thought to me.
I think honestly, I'm gonna do a ton of those combinations between all 4 of those players. I think I'm gonna have most of my lineups will start with 2 of those 4.
That is interesting. So, I mean, let's move on to the AKs, but you might not even be touching this area.
Well, yeah. So, the one guy that you have already mentioned who is in this range, Lucas Glover to me stands out. Lucas Glover comes in at 8,600. I do like the basic numbers on him. He has been playing well of late, but he's an ambassador of the course. Like he is one of the few guys that does have course knowledge. Now, the downside to that is that I think likely he's going to be a popular play.
Sure.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with his ownership because, similar to Ryan Palmer at the Byron Nelson, I forget what the course was, but it was Craig Ranch.
Craig Ranch.
TPC Craig Ranch. He was the held the course record, and that week he had come out on a podcast of him surface sort of saying what to expect at the course, and then his ownership is very high accordingly. So that would be my one concern with Lucas Glover, because he is the person who has course knowledge, is that his ownership might pop up there. But he's just been playing really good golf. You look at he missed the cut at Wells Fargo, but other than that, his last missed cut was the Genesis. He's played, he's got a top 4 at the Valero Texas Open. He was a top 10 at Charles Schwab. He has done a good job of finishing highly in tournaments, which is something you do want to see. And then I think been a decent cut maker. So he kind of hits of the people that. That next level is going to be difficult for me. Who do I think is worth spending up from, in the 7Ks or 6Ks? And I think likely I will get there on Lucas Glover.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think he is playing today in a US Open qualifier. I'm not exactly sure where or how he's doing, but I do think. Okay, so here's another question to you before I go into mine. But do you think that there's a little fatigue factor? Especially if guys just played Memorial, they're traveling to another course, they're playing 36 holes today, and then they have to go to South Carolina for another tournament starting that they haven't seen before. Not like they're going to the one that's been on the circuit for a while.
So I would say that's where I think that is definitely a factor, but I would say with Lucas Glover, I'm not as worried about that. I don't know how much exposure he has to the course, but likely he doesn't need to have as much time on the course for practice rounds in order to kind of prepare and have a feel for the course. I would say because he is an ambassador here and was recruiting players to come here to play in the tournament, I don't think he's going to qualify for the US Open and withdraw from the tournament. So I do think that that is definitely something to think about with these guys who are playing with US qualifiers, US Open qualifiers, but I'm not as worried with Glover as I would be with other guys.
Yeah. A couple interesting names. So again, Data Golf last 6 months, strokes gained total. Guys, he is above Harris English, Ian Poulter. So yeah, he has been playing really well lately. And
Yeah,
those guys
I mean, last
any
6 months,
slouches.
he's eighth in strokes gained total. So
Yeah.
In this field.
Okay, my AK guy I'm looking at, I got to pull up his price in here. Where'd he go? Keith Mitchell. He's pretty high, 8,800. 8,800. Missed cut at Charles Schwab, but prior to that, 5 straight made cuts, 3 of them being top 26 or better. T3 at Wells Fargo. He is a guy that has won the 2019, or he did win the 2019 Honda Classic, Tom Fazio design. Gaining strokes in putting in 7 of his last 9 events, gaining on approach in 4 of his last 5. He is this guy that they always talk about his putter splits, or people love to talk about his putter splits on Bermuda. I don't weigh that much into it, but it is kind of, of the 20 things I'm looking at, a slight positive on the 19th kind of factor there. I just think he's been playing good golf, and he seems like one of these guys, even though he is priced up, he can break through, and it looks like he is kind of priming himself for that breakthrough win again.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think especially if you buy into the length narrative, I think Mitchell's a good play. Like he does so much work with his driver that when he, when the everything else shows up for him, he can drive it as well as the top guys in the field. So it's just a very reliable weapon for him to have to lean on. And it's just, this is where we know so little about the course that it's tough to know whether that is the absolute, the weapon you want to hang your hat on or not. But, I think he definitely has upside.
So in this field, 7,000 range, kind of top is Lukeless at 7,900. Just to give you an idea of the field, bottom, we're looking at Danny Lee, Bryce Garnett, Mark Hubbard, Satoshi Kodaira. Those are the guys at 7K. In that entire range, there's a lot there. There's a handful there. Who's sticking out to you?
Okay, well, you know what? The one that I have identified as someone who I think is likely going to be in my player pool right at 7K flat is Bryce Garnett, who I have played at, comparable prices. So to me, it just seems like his price has not inflated. And this is where I struggle a little bit with like the flatness of the talent between some of these guys who have been bumped up and some of the guys who didn't.
Right. Yeah.
So I really like the value there. But then some other interesting names that I don't think we're going to get to. Davis Thompson, pro debut is 7,200. Wilco Nienaber, or South African, I guess, plays on the European Tour, who just bombs the ball. He's 7,300.
I like him, but I think he'll get kind of that height. I think he might get that height before this one a little bit. First time kind of on a PGA tournament.
Yeah, and then, similarly, Tom Lewis at 73, EVR at 75. Like some guys who we see at these prices in stronger fields who, it's a little bit curious to me. Those are things I will be looking at quite seriously as to whether there's value there.
EVR, I had a hard look at. He's won all over the world. A guy that I just can't seem to quit. Last time we saw him, he was smashing the tee box at the PGA Championship. He is playing a U.S. Open right now. I think through 9 holes, he looked pretty good. A qualifier, yeah. A qualifier. This is the first time we saw him since the PGA Championship, but ultimately, his strokes and approach have been very bad. So if he has kind of like I don't know, he's one I'm going to flag, but he's not my player of interest here.
Yeah, I do think, just on EVR for 1 sec, to me, he's done very well in very strong fields, but it seems like there's a lack of consistency in his game that when he's firing on all cylinders, he can play with the biggest names, the biggest fields, the strongest fields, all that. But his game can go sideways in a hurry, it seems. And even I've played him in rounds, and within rounds, it can go from looking pretty good to going sideways.
Yeah, if you think it's stressful watching Grillo or Keegan, I mean, EVR is that times like 4. Yeah. Okay, you mentioned your guy, Bryce Garnett. Is it time for my 7K?
Yeah, who do you like there?
I'm going Ben Martin, 7,600. He's made 4 of his last 5 cuts. All the ones he's made cuts, 34th or better. Includes T9 at Corrales Punta Cana, T11 at Wells Fargo. He's gained on approach in 4 straight events. Not a big hitter, so kind of going against that kind of big hitter narrative, but he is top 25 in the PGA in driving accuracy. And this I found kind of interesting, Craig, for the entire season, the wraparound season, he's positive in every strokes gained category. So not like a huge glaring weakness that he may have to overcome for a better finish or for a made cut, then ultimately a better finish. But yeah, Ben Martin.
Yeah, I like it. I do think that, to me, some of these guys, I don't want to linger here too long, but some of these guys we see up in the high 7Ks. Again, I just struggle to see how we're differentiating paying that much for them when some of these guys, the people they're oftentimes around haven't gotten the same price bump. So
I feel like someone made you say that. Who are you looking at here?
Well, just like Martin Lair, I guess CT Pan is higher than that, but Stallings, Redmond, we have started to see a little bit of form from Doc Redmond. Rafa Cabrera Bello, Pat Perez at 77. Like some of these guys we typically see around some of the guys we see in the low 7Ks here, and so it's just I'm having a hard time parsing through this field at this point to try to figure out where I really like the value.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It's just interesting.
So 69 and below, we start getting to a lot of guys that don't get that tour status where you can play every week, or they go back and forth with the Korn Ferry Tour. That's new guys. We got John Pack here. New guys to Lucas Bjerregaard, an interesting one. I don't think we've seen on the PGA Tour in a while, but he had that match play success against Tiger like 4 years ago now. So an interesting kind of group here. Who's sticking out?
Well, the one you had brought up as most interesting man in the field on the preview show, I like it. John Pack comes in at 6,900. It's maybe a little bit expensive, but I'm trying to figure out where to place these guys. And that said, I'm not positive at this point he's even going to be in my player pool, but sure, I'm going to continue to do a deeper dive. I think we've got Davis Thompson at 7,200, we've got John Pack at 6,900, and Cole Hammer at 6,800. So I would say that John Pack is one that I feel like he hasn't finished outside the top the top 12 since the US Open. Now that said, that is in amateur college golf, so do with that what you want. But it's just I think these guys are talented. I think likely I'm going to be taking some shots with them. Yeah,
no, I think that's fair. So my guy that's sticking out here, and sticking out's kind of generous, but I'm going with Aaron Baddeley, 6,500, Australian American. But he did spend his amateur years in Melbourne, Sandbelt, if we're talking there. I tried to look for Tom Fazio, some other courses with these other guys, just going with kind of the general theme of this course. But again, I do want to kind of echo what you said. So I usually play one big GPP, as you know, and then 20 and a 20 max. I'm almost certain in my one kind of main lineup, I'm not going to go below this low. In my 20 max, I don't even know what that's going to look like yet in my player pool. But someone that kind of stuck out early to me. So 6,500, Aaron Baddeley. He won 4 times in Australia. So I do like that if there is any comparison. He also does have his 4 PGA Tour wins. So, this guy that's 40 years old now, but he has won across all different kinds of tours. And I think there's guys in this area, a lot of these guys in there, you can't say that for. He does still Monday grind. He's still grinding out there. His last 8 starts, 4 have been Korn Ferry Tour, 4 have been PGA. So he still was playing golf and trying to, improve kind of, it seems like, every day. He does have 6 made cuts in those 8 starts. 4 of those are on the Korn Ferry Tour. He's 2-2 on the PGA Tour. In terms of a stat profile, he's just kind of one of the best putters over the past decade. Yeah. You've really dove into his stroke gain stats. He does stick out for his putting. But if there's a shot to take, I might as well take a guy that's a winner around the world and has made cuts recently, kind of, question mark?
Yeah, so what I was going to say was exactly about his putting. I think to me, it's a little bit like in the NBA, you'll see guys linger around longer than they should, but they're 3-point shooters, and when you need someone to just sit in the corner and be absolutely reliable, LeBron can draw 3 guys in and kick it out to someone. You got some small white guy out there that you're like, how is this guy an NBA player? Oh, because he makes those undefended threes at an absurdly high clip.
Back to when we were big basketball fans, Del Curry comes to mind.
Del Curry, or even like the Steve Kerr, that I guess I'm really going back because people think of him as a coach now, but even still, so Baddeley, that's kind of how I feel like with an all-time putter like Baddeley is, that it essentially lets him age much better, because as he maybe no longer has the ability to poke it out there with the young guys, he can still remain relevant, because you get a hot putter, it can make up for a lot of other things. Just wanted to hammer down into some of these young guys a little bit more. So Data Golf, again, we love to hype them up here. I think they're really good at comparing between the European Tour and the PGA, but also between the PGA and the Korn Ferry and amateur golf too. They kind of correlate between these things and use people who play in multiple events to try to figure out how someone doing really well in one, what that means if they were to go to the higher tour. They have John Pack. Currently, he is ranked 44th in the field in terms of strokes gained over the past 6 months. So that's where, like, to me, I currently have him earmarked as above the other guys. He's 62nd in pricing. So that, can he catch a little lightning in the bottle in his first pro start? We'll see.
And 44th ranking, put that in perspective, he's above guys like Tom Lewis, Keith Mitchell, EVR, Camille Villegas, Doc Redman,
right there next to Sepp Strachan, who's in the high sevens, and JT Poston, who I don't even know where he ended up on this. He's 7,600. So I just think that until we see what these guys have, there is that the potential that they do have a lot.
Yeah, for sure. That is kind of our first go at a preview, DFS preview, first look podcast. I think in future, we might expand it. But again, let us know your thoughts. YouTube, Apple Podcast reviews. Let us know what you think, what you'd like to see from the shows. I think, in future shows, we'll kind of recap our picks, maybe recap our players of interest real quick at the beginning. Craig, any kind of final closing thoughts? We have our YouTube shows, of course, coming out later in this week.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think our idea with this is that on a US Open week, like next week, we're looking at half hour-ish this week. I think likely we're going to go a lot more in depth to the entirety of the field and kind of talk in a more granular way through each of the plays above 8K, because that's what we like to do. So I think it'll kind of ebb and flow with the size of the tournament and the interest in the tournament.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for watching. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe. Anything else there, Craig?
No, good luck this week, guys. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, take care.